We're starting another segment on Immigration Update on the Air with Attorney Jack Golan, and we're discussing everything about immigration concerns. By the way, Attorney Golan, I remember you had mentioned in our previous interviews about the 5-year and the 10-year bar, and something like you gave a some good news development about the parole program. Can you clarify, please?
Let's talk about the 10-year bar.
Yes.
The 10-year bar would apply to anybody who stayed in the United States illegally for more than 1 year and then left the United States, which means if you came here either with a visa or no visa and stayed illegally, and the period of unlawful presence begins sometimes on the day you arrived, or sometimes on the day your visitor's visa or your student visa expires.
Mm-hmm.
And if you stayed here unlawfully for more than 1 year and then you leave the United States, the trigger is leaving the United States, then you are subject to the 10-year bar, which means that the American consul should not give you another visa, either a tourist visa or an immigrant visa, for a period of 10 years.
Wow.
And some people are permitted to apply for a waiver, a forgiveness of this 10-year bar, if they can show that a spouse or a parent who are American citizen or immigrants will suffer extreme hardship if they are not permitted to return immediately to the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a safety valve here. If you can convince the American consul that your spouse, your wife or husband, who is an American citizen or an immigrant, or one of your parents who is a citizen or an immigrant, would suffer extreme hardship if you are not given the visa to return immediately. The trouble with this was that those waivers or pardons were not granted often. Many times were denied, and even if they were granted, it may have taken a long time, maybe a year or two or more, to get the grant of the waiver. Which means when you left the United States, even if you went by a scheduled interview, you would be stuck there in the best case for, 6 months or 18 months, waiting for the waiver, if at all, if you even got it. Came the government and published a program which is called Provisional Waiver.
Yes.
A provisional waiver program by which they permit you to apply for the waiver before you leave the United States.
I see.
Not after the consular interview, but before you go for the consular interview. And for the lawyers, it makes it easier because we tell the client, if you get the waiver, then you go for the consular interview. If you don't get the waiver, you don't go.
Mm.
So this is the advantage and the liberalization, if you wish, that was introduced some time ago for people who cannot get a green card inside the United States, but must leave the U.S. and go back for an interview at the American Embassy.
So, Attorney Golan, for those who receive a waiver, they go home to their home country for an interview. Does that mean that if they have a waiver, there's sort of like a good sign they're going to get an approval, or it doesn't really mean that?
It means that they have a very good chance of getting an approval. Now, what is the problem here?
Mm-hmm.
That getting this waiver is good for one issue only, for one problem only. The waiver forgives them one sin only, the sin of staying unlawfully in the United States. But if this person has some additional sins on his record, then the waiver does not not forgive them those additional sins. For example, if somebody came here on let's say on a Siemens visa, on a crewman's visa,
yes,
and stayed here unlawfully for quite a long time, and marries an American citizen, and then gets this waiver and goes for an interview based on a petition by his U.S. citizen spouse, and he has a waiver for giving him the unlawful presence in the United States. But maybe the American consul will accuse him of obtaining the crewman's visa, the C1D1 visa, by fraud, which means the American consul can claim you never were a crewman, you never intended to be a crewman, you only obtained the C1D1 visa to go to the U.S. with a story that you are going to join a boat in Florida, in Miami, but you didn't really intend to do it, because when you arrived by plane in Los Angeles, you never continued to Florida and you never joined the ship, which means you obtained the Siemens visa by fraud.
I see.
And this is why I deny you the visa. Forget the waiver of the unlawful presence. I'm denying you because you went to the United States illegally. So we should all be very careful before sending somebody for an interview in the Philippines. Even if you go with a waiver, with a provisional waiver, you still have a risk that the consul will deny you for some other reason.
Right, and so that's really, yes, very, very crucial. Yes.
So we better be very careful, and you better tell us the whole truth about yourself before you go.
Right, and so that's why it's crucial that anyone who decides to leave the country, the United States, and they're not so sure about their immigration cases, to consult with an expert. And I'll give you this number for your free initial consultation. That's 213-383-3222, and talk directly to Attorney Jack Golan.